My name is Pearl, and on August 15th, I learned exactly how dangerous it can be when a narcissistic mother thinks her children's money belongs to her. It started like any other freshman move-in day. I was standing in line at State University registration when the clerk's face changed from happy to concerned. "I'm sorry, but you owe $4,800 on your account. We can't let you check in until you pay this." My stomach dropped. Behind me, my mom Eva stood with her arms crossed, drinking iced coffee like this was just another boring day. When I turned to her for help, she shrugged. "You should have planned better, Pearl. This isn't my problem," she yelled. I stayed calm, but I knew something was very wrong. I just didn't expect it would lead me to discover she had stolen over $150,000 meant for my education and care. Let me take you back 18 years before that registration desk. Eva had always been strange about money, but I thought it was because we were poor. I remember being 7 years old, watching her wave a check from my father like a prize. "Look what Mommy got today," she said to my sister Katie and me. Mommy's paycheck from Daddy. Even then, something felt wrong about how she said it. The way she called it Mommy's paycheck, like it was a private joke. When I asked what it was for, she laughed harshly. "This is how Mommy pays for your little lives. Daddy sends money so Mommy can take care of you ungrateful brats." But taking care of us meant something different to Eva. While she bought herself new clothes and electronics, Katie and I ate cereal for dinner and wore thrift store uniforms until they fell apart. I thought struggling families just lived like this. I was wrong. One particularly bad week, we only had crackers and peanut butter in the house. Katie was 5 and cried because she was hungry. Eva looked at us with pure disgust. "If you don't like what's here, call your father and complain to him. This is what his money gets you." But we were just kids. We didn't even know Dad's phone number. Eva controlled all contact with him and made sure we knew asking for anything was a burden. Meanwhile, Eva would return from shopping trips with new jewelry or announce weekend getaways to clear her head. Every birthday and Christmas, we'd see envelopes arrive addressed to us. Eva would grab them before we could open them. "I'll put this toward your expenses," she'd say, pocketing whatever was inside. "Your father thinks throwing money at you makes up for leaving you." The money would disappear, but Eva's new purchases would mysteriously appear. By age 9, I realized asking Eva for anything was pointless. She would either ignore me or start screaming about how ungrateful and expensive Katie and I were. So I stopped asking and started surviving. I taught myself to cook with whatever scraps were available. I learned to do laundry standing on a chair to reach the washer. I started hiding loose change so I could buy lunch when Eva forgot to give me lunch money. The worst part wasn't her neglect. It was how Eva reacted when I tried to help myself. If she caught me making a sandwich, she'd accuse me of eating all the food. If I did well in school, she'd say I was trying to make her look bad. I couldn't win. Ask for help? I was a burden. Don't ask for help? I was ungrateful and selfish. Katie and I learned to become invisible, to need nothing, to make Eva's neglect as easy as possible for her. When I was 12, Grandma died. She had always been our only ally, slipping us $20 bills when Eva wasn't looking. Her death felt like losing our only friend. But Eva saw it differently. "Grandma left me $75,000, she announced over dinner, glowing with excitement. "Finally, some real money around here." Katie asked hopefully if this meant new school clothes. Her uniform shirts had holes, and her shoes were held together with tape. Eva laughed cruelly. "Some of it will go toward your expenses, sure. But Mommy needs to take care of the house first. And herself. I've been sacrificing for you girls for years." She outlined her plans. New furniture, a cruise to process her grief, and supposedly saving money for our college expenses. "This is going to change everything," she promised. For a moment, I let myself hope. Maybe this was our turning point. Within 3 months, all $75,000 was gone. The living room got expensive furniture that Katie and I weren't allowed to touch. Eva returned from her cruise with bags of souvenirs for herself. She bought a new car and got weekly spa treatments. Meanwhile, Katie and I were back to cereal dinners and clothes that didn't fit. When I asked about the college money, Eva waved me off dismissively. There's still plenty left. Don't be so greedy. But I could see her stress returning as the money ran out. Soon she was back to snapping at us about expenses. The only difference was expensive furniture mocking us daily, reminding us where Grandma's love had really gone. I realized something crucial. Eva would never change. Money didn't make her generous. It just made her greedier. That's when I started paying closer attention to everything. That first day at college registration became my wake-up call. After Eva abandoned me at the desk, I panicked. The financial aid office was closed, and I had nowhere to turn. That's when the clerk, seeing my distress, suggested something that changed everything. Sometimes parents forget to tell the university about incoming payments. Do you have your father's contact information? We could call and see if he's planning to help with the balance. I stared at her. She didn't know the nature of my background, of course. I didn't have Dad's number, but I remembered his full name from some old torn envelopes I had seen back then in her house. So I mentioned his full name to the clerk. Could you look him up in your system? Maybe for my emergency contacts. She checked and found him listed from my original application. With shaking hands, I dialed the number she gave me. Hello. The voice was warm, concerned. Dad, this is Pearl. I'm at college registration, and there's a problem with my tuition. Pearl. Sweetheart, what's wrong? Tell me everything. Within 2 hours, my dad Greg had wired the money to cover my balance. But his reaction told me something was very wrong. I sent your mother money for exactly this situation months ago, he said when he called back. She told me everything was handled. That evening, I called Dad back from my dorm room. For the first time in my life, I had a real conversation with my father. He was nothing like Eva had described. He was kind, interested in my life, and deeply concerned about what had happened at registration. Pearl, I need to ask you something, and I want an honest answer. How much do you know about the support payments I send your mother? What support payments? I asked. There was a long silence. Sweetheart, I've been sending your mother over $2,000 every month for you and Katie's care, plus extra money for school expenses, emergencies, and I sent $15,000 specifically for your college fund last year. My world tilted. Dad, I've never seen any of that money. Katie and I have been living like we're poor. We eat cereal for dinner and wear clothes with holes. The pain in his voice was clear. Oh, honey, I had no idea. Your mother told me you girls were thriving. She said you were both doing well in school and that all your needs were met. That night, I couldn't sleep. Everything I thought I knew about our family was a lie. The next day, I called Katie and told her about my conversation with Dad. Her reaction shocked me. Pearl, I've been wondering about this for months. Last week, I was cleaning Mom's room and found a bank statement she forgot to hide. There were deposits for thousands of dollars every month, but we never see any of it. You saw the bank statement? Yes, and there was something else. I found old letters from Dad with checks inside. Some were for hundreds of dollars. Mom must have kept them all. She never told us they existed. Katie's voice got quieter. I also found something else. Dad's phone number written on a sticky note in her jewelry box. I memorized it but was too scared to call. Katie, Dad wants to talk to you too. He's been asking about both of us for years. Mom's been lying to everyone. That weekend, Katie called Dad for the first time. She came home crying, but they were good tears. He remembers my birthday, Pearl. He knows what grade I'm in. He's been trying to be part of our lives, but Mom kept blocking him. Over the next few months, Dad and I talked regularly. Each conversation revealed more lies Eva had told. She had been intercepting birthday cards with money inside. She had told Dad we didn't want to talk to him. She had claimed we were embarrassed by him and preferred not to have contact. Meanwhile, she had told us he didn't care about us, rarely sent money, and that we were burdens he resented paying for. The truth was devastating. Dad had been fighting for years to see us, to be involved in our lives. Eva had systematically destroyed that relationship to maintain control over the money he sent. I started documenting everything. Every conversation with Dad, every lie Eva had told, Every time she had money for herself while claiming we couldn't afford basic necessities. I kept detailed notes and dates. Because I was starting to realize something important. What Eva had done wasn't just wrong. It might be illegal. Senior year brought college applications and FAFSA forms. I had worked hard to keep my grades up, knowing education was my only escape route. When I asked Eva for our tax documents, she claimed everything was handled. I filed early this year. Everything's taken care of. As she sighed. But weeks passed without the papers I needed. Every time I asked, Eva had a new excuse. They were at the accountant. They were in the mail. She forgot to pick them up. Katie pulled me aside, looking guilty. I saw Mom shredding papers in the kitchen last week. They looked like tax forms. When I confronted Eva, she exploded. How dare you spy on me? I don't have them. Linda has them. My CPA friend Linda. I knew Linda from Eva's book club. She was always kind to Katie and me. The next day, I called her office directly. Hi, this is Pearl, Eva's daughter. My mom said you have our tax documents for my college financial aid. There was a pause. Honey, I haven't gotten anything from your mother, but I'd be happy to help you file everything from scratch. Linda became my lifeline. When I explained what happened, she didn't ask too many questions, but I could hear the worry in her voice. She worked with me for hours, helping me navigate the FAFSA website and gather replacement documents. Your mother should be helping you with this, she said gently. College financial aid is hard enough without figuring it out alone. During our work sessions, Linda asked careful questions that made me realize she suspected something wasn't right at home. Does your mother help you with other important documents? She asked. Does she usually handle family finances responsibly? When I admitted Eva often claimed we couldn't afford things while buying expensive items for herself, Linda's expression grew concerned. Pearl, do you know if your father sends any support payments? I told her what I had recently learned from Dad. Linda's face went pale. Honey, that's a lot of money. If it's not going toward your care and education, that's a serious problem. Linda didn't say it directly, but I could tell she thought Eva might be doing something illegal. My junior year, I took a business law class that opened my eyes completely. When we studied financial fraud and fiduciary responsibility, I realized what Eva had done wasn't just morally wrong, it was legally wrong. I made an appointment with Professor Martinez during her office hours. Professor, I have a question about misuse of child support funds. She looked up from her papers. What kind of situation are we talking about? I explained about a parent receiving money specifically designated for a child's education, but using it for personal expenses instead. Professor Martinez leaned back in her chair. Child support funds are legally required to be used for the child's benefit. If a parent diverts education funds for personal use, that can constitute theft, fraud, or breach of fiduciary duty, depending on the circumstances. What would someone need to prove that? I asked. Documentation. Bank records, communication showing the intended purpose of the funds, evidence that the money was used for other purposes. There are also statutes of limitations to consider, but for ongoing fraud, the clock doesn't start until the victim discovers the crime. I had been discovering it for months, and I had documentation. Over the next year, I became a detective in my own life. I documented everything methodically, building a case that would be impossible to deny. Dad gave me copies of every payment he had ever made: child support, education funds, emergency money, mortgage payments. The paper trail was extensive and clear. I requested our family's bank records through official channels. The contrast was shocking. Large deposits from Dad followed immediately by personal purchases that had nothing to do with Katie's and my needs. I collected evidence of our living conditions over the years. Photos from school events where Katie and I looked underfed and poorly dressed. Report cards with teacher comments asking if everything was okay at home. Medical records showing missed appointments because Eva claimed she couldn't afford copays. Linda agreed to provide a statement about Eva's lies regarding our tax documents. My high school guidance counselor remembered Eva refusing to pay for college applications while bragging about expensive vacations. Most importantly, I got Katie's testimony. She was angry too now that she understood what had really happened. The moment everything crystallized happened during spring break of my junior year. Eva had gone on another expensive spa weekend, leaving Katie and me with no food money. I was doing laundry when I found a crumpled bank statement in Eva's jeans pocket. The statement showed her account balance and recent transactions. There it was in black and white. A deposit of $2,400 from Gregory Jenkins, support followed immediately by charges for luxury purchases, restaurant meals, and cash withdrawals. Not a single expense related to Katie or me. I stared at that statement for a full minute. This wasn't just suspicion anymore. This was proof. Eva had been systematically stealing our support money for years, leaving us to go hungry while she lived like a queen. That night, I called Dad and told him what I had found. Dad, I have her bank statement. I can see exactly where your money went, and none of it went to us. Pearl, what you're describing sounds like criminal fraud. Have you thought about taking legal action? I had been thinking about it for months. Yes, Dad. I think it's time. I wasn't ready to act yet. I wanted Eva to know her years of lies and theft were catching up to her. I wanted her to understand that the children she had abused and neglected had grown up to be smarter than she ever expected. I wanted her to be afraid. My senior year, I set the trap. I knew Eva's weaknesses, her greed, her need to control, and her assumption that Katie and I would never fight back. I started by cutting off all financial information. When Eva called asking about my school expenses, I told her everything was handled. When she tried to get information from the university, they referred her to me. Then I started asking questions that made her nervous. Mom, I've been thinking about applying for additional financial aid. They want to know about any other support I receive. Should I mention the college fund Dad sent? Eva's voice got sharp. What college fund? The one you told me about. Remember? You said Dad had sent money for my education. I never said that. Really? Because I have it written down in my notes from when we filled out my FAFSA. Over the following weeks, I continued to apply subtle pressure. I would mention Dad in casual conversation, talking about how helpful he had been with college planning. Eva's reactions grew more frantic each time. You shouldn't be talking to your father without me knowing, she snapped one day. Why not? I'm 18. And he's been really supportive about my education. Supportive? He barely contributes anything. I looked at her calmly. That's interesting. Because he showed me copies of all the money he's sent over the years. It's quite a lot, actually. Eva's face went white. What copies? Bank records, transfer receipts, communication about the purposes of different payments. He's very organized. That night, I heard Eva on the phone with someone, speaking in hushed, panicked tones. She was starting to understand that her lies were unraveling. But I wasn't done yet. I wanted her to fully comprehend what was coming. The graduation ceremony was perfect for what I had planned. Eva was in the crowd, already imagining the social media posts she'd make about her brilliant daughter. My stomach churned with anticipation. After the ceremony, as families gathered for photos, I found Dad and Katie. We had been planning this moment for weeks. Are you ready? I whispered. They both nodded. Katie squeezed my hand. She deserves this, Pearl. Eva was already posing for photos, beaming falsely. As she turned to congratulate me, I stepped forward with a small smile. Mom, I said, my voice clear enough to carry to nearby relatives and friends, I have a surprise for you. She preened, expecting some public acknowledgement of her sacrifices. Oh, darling, what is it? It's about the money Dad has been sending for Katie and me over the years. The money that never quite made it to us. Her smile faltered. What are you talking about? Your father sends barely anything. I pulled out a folder I had prepared, filled with bank records and documentation. Because according to these records, Dad sent over $150,000 for our support and education over the past 10 years. That includes the $15,000 college fund specifically for my tuition. A hush fell over the small group around us. Eva's face went from pale to mottled red. You're lying. Your father is a liar. Dad stepped forward, holding up his own folder. Eva, the bank records don't lie. Every transfer is documented, including the specific purposes I stated for educational funds. This is a conspiracy, she shrieked, attracting more attention. You two are trying to ruin me. You ruined yourself, Mom, Katie said, stepping beside me. While you were buying new cars and going on cruises, I was wearing shoes with holes and worrying about my next meal. People began to whisper, pointing at Eva. Her carefully constructed facade was crumbling in public, exactly as I had planned. Some of Eva's friends, who had nodded along with her stories of being a sacrificing single mom, now looked horrified. I also took a business law class, Mom. I continued, pressing my advantage. And I learned that diverting funds specifically designated for a child's care and education isn't just unethical, it's illegal. It's fraud. It's theft. Eva's eyes darted around wildly, looking for escape, but the crowd was closing in. And I added, my voice cutting through the tension, I've filed a formal complaint with the family court and the district attorney's office, supported by all the evidence you see here and much more. Bank records, communication logs, and sworn statements from Dad, Linda, Katie, and others who witnessed your behavior. Her jaw dropped. You wouldn't dare. Oh, I dared, I said, cold satisfaction spreading through me. Because I'm done being your victim. Katie's done being your victim. And it's time you face the consequences of your choices. Just then, 2 plainclothes officers approached. They had been waiting nearby as planned. Eva Jenkins? We're from the sheriff's department. We have a warrant for your arrest regarding charges of felony fraud and grand theft related to the misuse of child support and educational funds. Eva let out a strangled gasp, her eyes wide with terror. No. This is a mistake. My daughter is lying. All the evidence will be presented in court, ma'am, the officer stated calmly. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. As they handcuffed her, Eva screamed my name, a guttural sound of pure hatred and disbelief. Pearl. You ungrateful bitch. I gave you everything. You gave us nothing but lies and neglect, Mom, I said, my voice unwavering, looking directly into her frantic, desperate eyes. And now, you're finally going to pay for it. She was led away, her public image shattered, her future irrevocably altered. The crowd parted, murmuring. Some looked at me with pity, others with admiration. Dad put an arm around me, his eyes filled with sorrow and pride. Katie hugged me tightly. It's finally over, Pearl. No, I corrected, watching Eva disappear from sight. It's just beginning. But this time, the consequences are hers to bear. 8 months later, the courtroom was packed. Eva walked in with her head held high, designer handbag clutched in her manicured hand, as if this were just another social event. She shot me a sneer, confident in her ability to charm her way out of anything. The prosecution laid out the case with precision, presenting every bank record, every canceled check from Dad, every testimony. Linda testified about the destroyed tax documents. Katie testified about years of neglect, while Eva spent lavishly on herself. I calmly laid bare years of manipulation, backed by irrefutable proof. Eva's lawyer tried to paint her as a struggling single mother, overwhelmed by financial burdens. But the evidence of her lavish spending stood in stark contrast to our meager existence. When Eva took the stand, her performance was dramatic at first: tears, feigned regret, accusations of a vengeful ex-husband, and ungrateful children. But under cross-examination, her carefully constructed lies crumbled. She contradicted herself, her anger flashing through the veneer of victimhood. The judge listened, her expression unreadable. When it was time for the verdict, the air was thick with anticipation. Miss Jenkins, the judge began, her voice cutting through the silence, this court has reviewed the overwhelming evidence presented. It is clear that for many years, you systematically defrauded your children and their father, diverting substantial funds intended for their care, sustenance, and education for your personal enrichment. Eva's proud posture began to slump. She clutched her expensive bag tighter. Your actions demonstrate a profound breach of trust and a callous disregard for the welfare of your own children. Therefore, on the counts of felony fraud and grand theft, this court finds you guilty." A gasp rippled through the gallery. Eva's face contorted with disbelief. "Given the severity and duration of these offenses and the profound impact on your victims, this court sentences you to 5 years in state prison. Furthermore, you are ordered to pay full restitution to Mr. Gregory Jenkins for all misappropriated funds, totaling $152,000. Should you fail to pay restitution upon release, your parole will be revoked." The gavel slammed down. Eva's designer bag slipped from her grasp and clattered to the floor as bailiffs moved to take her. She glared at me, her eyes burning with desperate, impotent rage. 5 years passed. I graduated college debt-free thanks to Dad's unwavering support, secured a great job in corporate law, and built a life far removed from the scarcity and manipulation of my childhood. Katie thrived in her nursing career, also supported by Dad's honesty and generosity. Our relationship with Dad flourished, built on truth and mutual respect. We even sold the house Eva had owned, splitting the proceeds with Dad, who had been secretly paying the mortgage for years. I established a scholarship fund for students whose parents had misappropriated their educational funds. Linda became like a second mother to Katie and me. We created the family we had always deserved. Then, one rainy afternoon 6 months after Eva's release from prison, my office phone rang. The voice on the other end was hesitant, raspy. "Pearl, it's your mother." My blood ran cold for a second, then quickly warmed with certainty. I hadn't heard from her since the trial. "What do you want, Eva?" I asked, using her first without hesitation. "Pearl, I need your help," she pleaded, her voice a shadow of its former imperious tone. "Things are very bad. I lost everything. The house was foreclosed. My assets were seized for restitution. I have nowhere to go. I'm living in a shelter." My mind flashed back to cold dinners, worn-out clothes, the constant hunger in my stomach as a child. I pictured myself sleeping on the floor of an empty dorm room while she squandered thousands. "You're homeless?" I asked, my voice flat, devoid of emotion. "Yes." "Please, Pearl. I'm your mother. Can't you help me? Just a place to stay, some money for food." "I'm so sorry, I truly am. I've learned my lesson." I closed my eyes, remembering her in court, arrogant in designer clothes, then picturing the look on her face as the judge delivered her sentence. The regret in her voice now felt hollow, born of desperation, not true remorse. "Eva," I said, my voice clear and unwavering, "I told you at my graduation that it was time you faced the consequences of your choices. This is it. You made your bed when you stole from your children, when you chose luxury over our basic needs, when you lied and manipulated us for years. But I'm your mother. Family helps family," she cried, a hint of her old demanding tone creeping back in. "Family helps family, yes," I countered, "but you were never family to me, not in any meaningful way. You were a thief and an abuser. You left Katie and me to fend for ourselves for years while you lived comfortably on our money. Now you're experiencing what it feels like to be truly on your own." There was a long silence, broken only by a shaky sigh from her. "I have nothing for you, Eva," I concluded, my voice firm and final. "You made your choices. These are your consequences. Don't call me again." And with that, I hung up. The line went dead, just like my feelings for her. I felt no triumph, no glee. Just a quiet, profound sense of peace. The circle was complete. Justice had been served through the legal system and the natural consequences of her own cruel actions. I was finally, truly free.
If this story got you thinking, go ahead and hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe for more real stories that hit deep, and tap the bell so you don't miss what's coming next. And hey, if you know someone who needs to hear this one, share it with them. Thanks for watching.